we've talked about a little bit the fact that Mark Cuban has been pretty out front in his advocacy lately against Donald Trump. And I find him an interesting character to be engaging in these conversations. Here you'll see him debating Vivek Ramaswamy and doing a really nice job of it. Vivek Ramaswamy being the Maga former presidential candidate and now pro-Trump influencer. And what's interesting to me about figures like Mark Cuban is they're not overtly associated with the Democratic Party. A lot of people, unfortunately, will just turn their ears off if they see people who are obviously just ideologically on the left. They'll just think, nah. But you get your Adam Kinzingers, who are former Republicans or current Republicans, but anti-Trump. Or here, someone like Mark Cuban, a billionaire associated with sports on Shark Tank, right? Businessman. I do think some people's ears will be a little bit more open to hearing what he has to say if you're of a certain group. And that's why I find these appearances of his really interesting. So let's play this. I'll probably end up playing a lot for you and then jump in at the end and respond. So here we go.
It's ethics. The man told Mike Pence not to certify the election. The man called the Secretary of State, or was it governor? I forget, and asked for 11,072 votes. The man has stolen from more hardworking Americans.
You were against Trump in 2016, though. You were against Trump in 2016.
Right, but he was unethical then, and he's still unethical.
And in 20, right.
That's right, but that's the whole point. I actually started off supporting Donald, and then I got to know him better.
When did you support him?
Like 2015, I was like, he's great. He's he's not a typical Stepford candidate. I thought that was a positive.
I would think that's a positive, right? A business guy who's pretty practical.
But then I got to know
not
him.
Ideological.
Then I got to Trump University, Trump Soho, stole $4 million from a friend of mine that had sued to get it back. Mike Pence, 40 out of 44 people.
Just take a look at the 4 years, because each of these are just going to be separate sort of personal attack rabbit holes. Look at the country in those 4 years.
No, they're not personal attack rabbit holes. They're legitimate things that actually happened.
So do you think the country, do you think the economy prospered and border crossing issues were far better under Donald Trump under those 4 years than they've been in the last 4 years? You disagree on that premise too.
No, because if you look at border what was Obama's nickname? The deporter in chief. If you look at actual crossings, they were lower under Obama, and when Obama came in, they were higher, and he continued to lower them until the last couple months. On the economy, Obama took a fucked up economy and improved it, and Trump inherited that, right? And actually, inflation grew by 25% under Trump over Obama. The one certainty about the office of the President of the United States is the complete uncertainty, that you have no idea what comes next. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Okay, and so in my mind, and I think a lot of people's minds that oppose Donald Trump, is that you want somebody there that is educated on the world, but more importantly, just is ethical, right? So that they make ethical decisions. You want somebody when there is no precedent, it's never happened before. You want somebody that has hired not people who are most loyal, like Tony Soprano might have done, but hired the very best people. And those people want to stay and work for them, not that they're loyal. You want somebody whose first inclination is not to do what's in their own best personal interest.
So
right?
Can I just
you can't deny that's Donald Trump.
There is a whole nother minute. Let me play that in just a little bit so that I can not have just like so much to respond to at the very end. First, I'll try to go through quickly. One thing I hear a lot of MAGA folks do, and I've had this happen in personal conversations, is they want to exclude, they want to omit from Trump's record the most consequential parts of it, which, yeah, I'm sure that would make it easier for you to justify him as a candidate. I still don't think you could, but it's a strange thing for you to do. And what I mean is, often they'll say, okay, you keep bringing up the period after he lost the 2020 election, or the build up to it where he was already lying about how it might be stolen, and then he said it was stolen, and they used that to justify illegal schemes he's now being prosecuted for to block the peaceful transfer of power. That period of time, yeah. Can we just exclude that? and exclude anything related to it, like later on him saying because of those election lies we should terminate the Constitution, or saying that we should pardon and honor those who attacked police officers trying to block the certification of the election. And yes, MAGA, he recently said absolutely in response to a question about pardoning people who assaulted police officers, was the exact wording that the reporter asked. He said, absolutely I would, because those were rigged trials. So they also want to exclude anything relating, even if it happened after, way after, as he's running for president. And it's a weird thing to do, because no, that's a big part of the MAGA identity now, is the election denying and all the things like the fraudulent slate of electors they tried to pass off, pressuring Mike Pence to accept those instead of the lawful ones to keep Trump in power, even though he lost the election. The fact that one of the most consequential parts of any presidency in the history of presidencies, being the sitting president trying to end the process we've had for so many years, which is one person peacefully handing power to the next person after a free and fair election. It's crazy you want to exclude that. I understand why, but no, I'm not going to let you do that, because that is a part of the reason he's so unfit. One of the reasons he's as unfit as he is because we learned about him, oh my gosh, in his own words, he'd be willing to terminate the Constitution in service of his own lies about elections. That guy can't be anywhere close to the White House again. So stop with this. Yeah, but what about the stuff before? Because we can still, as a thought experiment, go into that. And we have before, talking about his failed legislative record, or talking about how your perception of his economic record is him inheriting a super strong economy handed to him after a recovery under Obama. And then based on most projections, he's sort of underperformed, but things kind of kept chugging along as they were expected to, given what he was handed. So he sort of didn't mess things up for a few years. And then the other part they want to omit is his handling of a crisis. And that's why the point there is so important from Mark Cuban, which is character matters. Competency matters. And you pointing to the years where there wasn't such a crisis to say, but things sort of didn't fall apart after what he was handed. In those years, yeah, but then a crisis hit. And while you don't know what crisis will hit, your job is to handle the ones that do. And for Trump, that was the pandemic. And that was a really unprecedented, very difficult situation. I don't blame him for every horrible thing that happened because of it. I do blame him for the horrific mishandling that has led medical professionals to saying, his own Dr. Birx, to saying, if this was handled more effectively, we could have saved hundreds of thousands of lives. And then handed a country in shambles to Biden to have to pick up the pieces with. So the reason why character is so important, when they try to say, oh, no, stop, I know Trump did this and said this and did all this stuff in his past, civilly liable, sexual abuser, but because we think he's going to do good stuff over here. No, but see, the character then shows itself eventually, often in crisis moments, and that's what we saw. He prioritized his own political advantage over people's well-being. Then another interesting point there from Mark Cuban about border crossings. If the policies in your mind that Trump was implementing while he was president were so effective, why is it that, hold on comparing it to Biden, why is it that comparing it to his predecessor, he actually saw border crossings get all the way up to higher than they had been any time under Obama in 2019? So after years of being president and implementing these policies, they actually got higher than under Obama. Even with the inhumane policies being implemented by Trump that you say are necessary to decrease border crossings, actually, that didn't happen. But then you point to 2020, the pandemic year, where movement froze in many ways. So obviously that impacted migration as his big success. Yeah, when a pandemic was raging in our country, if that's what you want to take credit for when border crossings went down, okay, a little strange, I'd say. And then obviously we've addressed the post-pandemic surge hundreds of times now on the show. And now border crossings are lower than they were at the same time of the year in 2019 under Trump. Now, again, pre-pandemic versus now. Okay. Uneducated presidents also mishandle crises. So he alluded to it a little bit, but it's bothersome seeing how many things MAGA folks are willing to excuse now. Oh, forget about the fact that he clearly can't comprehend so many subjects when he talks about them. We'd do the greatest. Everything would be perfect. Yeah, but what's your actual tax proposal? We've heard things like a 10% tariff across the board on all imports. That would be a disaster. And then I have another point, but let's save it for after this.
That has a long history of stealing from people, of being unethical.
I'll tell you,
and you know it.
Is Donald Trump a perfect person? No, he is not. Am I a perfect
we're not
person?
talking about minimal
Are you a perfect person?
No,
You're not.
No,
but we have to
we're
ask
not talking about
who's the actual best
have
president.
You ever stolen money?
We have right now. I've never stolen money from anybody. No.
Either have I. Right? Have you ever had a company?
I have no evidence to say that Donald Trump has either.
Oh, I do for sure. Ask Barbara Corcoran, right? You know, she had to sue to get her money back. Ask anybody from Trump University. Ask people who bought condos in Trump Soho. Ask people from, Trump Foundation that gave money there. Ask people who are giving money today, and he's using that money for his legal fees. So, this isn't like a little discretion. This is a habit.
Mark,
That's why I can't support him.
Look,
you were talking about ethics.
The majority of people who regularly watch this show aren't subscribed to it. That's kind of crazy, right? If that applies to you, do me a favor and click that subscribe button. Easy, free, but makes all the difference. I appreciate it. Back to the video.
You would not. Have you ever told any of your employees to short pay a vendor just to try to save some money?
No.
Yeah. And that one gets my blood pressure higher than it should be. Which is the, listen, hold up. Whoa, liberal, wait a minute. I'm not saying Trump's perfect. Nobody's perfect. Okay? We all mess up here and there. As a way of excusing these historic wrongs, or in his personal life, all of his cheating and stealing, both in his business practices and in the cheating in his personal life, or his sexual abusing as was litigated in a civil trial, or his criminality as was litigated in a criminal trial. Are you really chalking all that up to, come on, we all make mistakes, sheesh? Or, of course, all the things democracy related that my regular viewers would poke their ears out if I went through the whole list again, some of which we touched on in this segment. All of that is really just, he's not a perfect guy. You think you can wave it off with that? I don't think so. You're right, he's not perfect. He's about as far from perfect as you can get, and that's why, while we are never going to have a perfect president, I'd like to get someone that's just a little bit closer to that than the side of the spectrum that Trump is occupying, if you know what I mean there. Let me know what your thoughts are about Mark Cuban as a pro-Harris campaign voice in this moment. Him saying he would have voted for Nikki Haley if she were the Republican nominee over Biden. And I disagree with that analysis, but it makes him maybe more credible to certain people as not just a super pro-Democratic candidate person, but instead understanding why Trump is uniquely bad. And then Harris presenting what is a pretty unifying message, so you can let me know about all that in the comments. And if you want to get extra content daily, you can do so by clicking the join button below. That supports the work we do, and we have a fun time, okay, on the bonus show. It's a good time, and I want you there.